I am Buck. I spend most of my time observing the invisible gears that move American cities, and there's a cruel mathematical truth I notice on every corner. Being poor is terribly expensive. While the world applauds billionaires for their frugality, I observe the common man paying double for the simple right to exist. Most of you believe that the lack of money is the only problem, but I notice that the real problem is the friction tax that the system imposes on those living on the edge. Imagine that life is an obstacle course where, if you have capital, the ground is smooth and fast, but if you're broke, the ground turns into quicksand. Every step you take requires double the energy and double the resources to cover the same distance as a sovereign man. I've seen people lose potential fortunes because they were too busy paying late fees and predatory interest. The American system wasn't designed to help you climb. It was designed to extract every penny from your urgency and lack of options. In this video, I'm going to dissect the mechanisms that make you pay double for everything, and how your psychology is manipulated to accept this as normal. I'm not here to give you cheap economy tips. I'm here to give you the strategic vision that the system tries to hide from you at all costs. Let's talk about how the lack of margin destroys your mental clarity and forces you to make decisions that guarantee your future poverty. My goal is that by the end of this conversation, you'll never look at a price again without calculating the real cost of your freedom. Being broke isn't just a logistical problem. It's a state of constant aggression against your brain that I notice in almost everyone living paycheck to paycheck. When you wake up not knowing if you'll have enough for rent, your brain enters cognitive tunneling, where your mental field of vision narrows. You lose the ability to plan for next month or identify long-term opportunities that could pull you out of the hole. Chronic stress floods your system with cortisol, shutting down the parts responsible for rational decision-making. I observe that this state of financial fog is what the system uses to sell you quick and disastrous solutions, because you're too desperate to read between the lines. In psychology, we know that scarcity consumes an immense amount of mental bandwidth, leaving you exhausted and prone to errors you wouldn't make in a calm state. That's why you forget to pay a bill on the right day, generating a $30 fine you don't have, which in turn generates stress that makes you spend more on fast food to compensate. Buck, noticed that most people who feel stupid with money are actually just mentally exhausted from the burden of survival. It's not lack of intelligence, it's lack of margin. When you don't have room to make mistakes, every small slip becomes a catastrophe that demands all your vital energy. This decision fatigue makes you, at the end of a long day, opt for expensive convenience that drains what little is left. The system knows this and positions consumption traps precisely at moments when you're most vulnerable. There's a basic mathematical injustice in American retail that I notice in every aisle. The less money you have, the more you pay per unit. If you don't have $50 to buy the large package at Costco or Sam's Club, you end up buying the 4-roll package at the corner store for a proportionally 3 times higher price. The system punishes your lack of immediate liquidity by charging a poverty premium on every essential item. I've seen families spend hundreds of dollars more per year simply because they don't have the extra $200 to stock up on basic items. This is the unit trap. The inability to anticipate consumption forces you to live in the cycle of constant and expensive replenishment. The sovereign man uses his capital to buy time and future convenience, while the broke man uses his present work to buy only the most expensive possible now. I noticed that this difference of pennies transforms into thousands of dollars over a lifetime, dollars that could be invested instead of generating profit for the supermarket owner. Poverty forces you to be an inefficient consumer. Changing this math requires what I call strategic clustering, where you prioritize liquidity to break the unit purchase cycle as quickly as possible. Sometimes this means giving up a small luxury today to have the extra $20 that will allow you to buy the larger size of an item next week. It's an exercise in discipline and future vision that I consider the foundation for any real financial sovereignty plan. You need to start seeing each purchase as an investment in efficiency, asking yourself how to stop paying this poverty premium. Now let's go down to the basement, the credit market for those on the edge. I noticed that the American financial system has 2 faces, one that pays you interest to use your money and another that charges you extortive rates because you can't wait. When you use credit card, revolving credit, or resort to a payday loan, you're renting your own life. I see people paying interest that guarantees that every dollar spent today will cost $2 or $3 in the near future, draining any chance of prosperity. This math is designed to be a maze with no exit, where the principal value of the debt becomes irrelevant in the face of the avalanche of charges that accumulate weekly. The system knows that if you're desperate today, you'll accept any terms to survive until tomorrow, and they capitalize on this biological urgency. I notice that the cost of interest is the biggest liability in middle-class life, acting like a pulled handbrake while you try to accelerate your career and earnings. It's an invisible tax you pay by signing contracts you don't understand. To break this math, you need to adopt a zero-tolerance stance toward consumer interest, treating it like the poison it really is. iBuck suggests that your first mission be to eliminate high-cost debt with the ferocity of someone fighting for their own life. There's no investment in the world that gives you a higher return than stopping paying 25% interest to a card company. Every dollar you stop paying in interest is a dollar that returns to your command, strengthening your protection wall and allowing you to play the capital game. One of the most perverse facets of scarcity math is what I call the cost of postponement, where the lack of money for maintenance today generates a catastrophe tomorrow. I notice that those who are broke usually ignore that noise in the engine because there's no room in the budget for immediate repair. The problem is that what would cost $100 now will turn into $2,000 in 6 months. The system punishes your inability to act preventively, forcing you to pay a negligence premium beyond your recovery capacity. I observe this frequently in American suburbs. The man who doesn't have money for routine dental cleaning ends up needing a root canal that costs 10 times more. Poverty forces you to be a high-risk gambler, betting against the odds that things will continue working without care. I notice that this reactive stance keeps people trapped in the cycle of 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Preventive maintenance is a luxury that the rich possess and the broke can't finance, creating an efficiency gap. To break this cycle, you need to institute the Integrity Fund, a reserve dedicated exclusively to keeping things working before they break completely. I noticed that having $500 for preventive maintenance is more valuable than having $5,000 invested while your life is falling apart from lack of care. Sovereignty requires that you be an attentive caretaker of your territory, anticipating problems while they're small. By adopting this stance, you remove the surprise factor from your finances and stop being a victim of the natural entropy of things. There's a subtle psychological trap I noticed destroying the future of millions: the need for small rewards to endure a life of scarcity. When you're stressed, your brain seeks dopamine relief, and the market offers this in $7 coffees or quick snacks. I notice these people say, "I deserve this treat," without realizing that these treats are precisely what prevents them from getting out of the situation that generates the original stress. It's financial self-medication that consumes the capital of your sovereignty. This silent erosion happens because you're focused on the micro instead of looking at the macro of your existence. $10 spent daily on conveniences transforms into $300 per month, an amount that could be the difference between having a wall of dignity or living in bankruptcy. I notice that the system uses marketing to convince that these expenses are insignificant, but in scarcity math, there's no insignificant expense. The real reward isn't gourmet coffee. It's the peace of mind of knowing you have total control over your destiny. To break this pattern, you need to redefine what it means to deserve something, shifting focus from immediate gratification to lasting sovereignty. I notice that you deserve a solid bank account and nights of sleep without worries. Compared to this, a snack or an extra subscription are crumbs that shouldn't satisfy you if you have a bigger goal. The discipline to refuse the small reward today to guarantee the empire tomorrow is what separates sovereign men from the mass that lives adrift, seeking cheap pleasures amid desperation. Scarcity math steals your time and then charges you an exorbitant premium to try to recover it. I notice that those who are broke spend hours on inefficient transportation or trying to fix old things that never get good. Time, which should be your most valuable asset, is wasted on survival logistics, leaving you without energy for your evolution. And when you're exhausted from so much waiting, the system offers the convenience of paying double to have something immediate, exploiting your accumulated fatigue. I observe this frequently. The worker who spends 3 hours a day commuting, arriving home so drained that they end up paying for expensive delivered food. I notice that the real cost of this lifestyle isn't just the ticket value, but the lost opportunity to use that time to learn a new skill. Poverty keeps you in a temporal prison, where your clock is governed by system inefficiencies. For the sovereign man, time is leverage. For the broke man, time is something he trades for crumbs. I notice that regaining control over your time is often the first real step to getting out of scarcity, even if it requires painful sacrifices. Sometimes, living closer to work in a smaller place is what gives you the extra hours needed to change your professional trajectory. The wise observer understands that time is the raw material of wealth, and that wasting it in lines is the same as throwing gold in the trash. You need to value your life hour aggressively, refusing to accept inefficiencies that the system tries to impose on you. Let's talk about the humiliation fees that the system imposes on those who commit the crime of not having sufficient balance. I notice that banks have a menu of penalties designed specifically to extract money from those who already have nothing. If you overdraw by $1, they charge 35. If you're late with rent, the fine is 10%. I see this math as a system of social punishments that penalizes vulnerability with more scarcity, creating a moral abyss where the poor's mistake is profit for the rich. These fees aren't just financial. They carry a psychological weight of failure that undermines your confidence. I observe that the anxiety of avoiding these fines consumes immense mental energy, forcing you to live in a state of constant and exhausting alert. I notice that the system uses these penalties as behavioral control, ensuring you're always too worried about small rules to question the bigger game. It's a form of discipline through privation aimed at keeping the mass obedient. The math here is perverse. The bank doesn't charge fees to those with $100,000 invested, but charges the worker who has only $200 in the account. I notice that the system subsidizes the rich's comfort with penalties imposed on the poor, creating a reverse wealth transfer. You pay to store money, pay to withdraw it, and pay if the balance drops. I see these fees as the dependency toll, the price you pay for not having enough capital to be considered a valuable and untouchable customer. The zip code where you live determines the hidden math of your cost of living and the opportunities you'll have. I notice that poorer neighborhoods have what I call extraction geometry, where everything from car insurance to milk prices is more expensive and of worse quality. The system creates financial desserts where the only option is expensive consumption at convenience stores. I observe that living in a cheap place can be a strategic mistake if that place charges you double in transportation time and health maintenance. There's a cruel geographical math. Your car insurance in a peripheral neighborhood can cost double what it would cost in a rich suburb due to the statistical risk of the location. I notice that you're punished for the neighborhood you're forced to inhabit, paying more for an identical service just for the risk label. I see this as an invisible residence tax that drains your potential before you even leave home. Poverty pushes you into environments designed to extract the maximum from you with minimum support. Changing zip codes is often the most profitable attitude someone can take due to the mathematical efficiency that a better environment provides. I noticed that paying $200 more in rent to live near a wholesale supermarket and work can save you $500 in food and transportation. I encourage you to do the complete math of your address, including the value of lost time. Sometimes the place that seems expensive on paper is the smartest investment to free your capital and mental energy. We've reached the critical point: how to use math in your favor to escape the gravity of scarcity. I notice that poverty has a powerful inertia that tries to pull you back to old habits whenever you try to rise. To break this inertia, you need an initial impulse of capital and will greater than all extraction forces. I call this financial escape velocity. the moment when your efficiencies surpass the maintenance cost of your basic life. The first step to the sovereign leap is voluntary ego mutilation, where you cut expenses that only serve to feed the persona and impress neighbors. I observe that most don't escape poverty because they prefer the illusion of wealth today over the reality of freedom tomorrow. I notice that you need the courage to look poor in the world's eyes to become truly rich in the silence of your balance sheet. By reducing costs to minimum, you create financial pressure for each dollar to become a liberation tool. The leap math requires obsessive focus on increasing your personal profit margin, the difference between what you earn and what you spend to live. I notice that most focus only on earning more, but I tell you that saving $1 in an extraction system is as powerful as earning two. I encourage you to be a master of efficiency, hunting every capital leak with surgical precision. When your margin grows, your power of choice increases exponentially, allowing you to invest in assets that work for you. We've reached the end of this anatomy of scarcity mathematics, but your reconstruction work is just beginning in the shadows. I notice that knowledge without action is just entertainment, and I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to equip you for the war for your dignity. What we discussed today are pieces of a puzzle that the system tries to keep disassembled, so you never see the complete picture of your own exploitation and dependence. Mathematical awakening means you'll never look at a price or credit offer the same way again, because now you see the hidden interest and lost time. I observe that freedom begins with a cold calculation and a hot decision to no longer accept being the toll payer for others' success. I, Buck, encourage you to transform your indignation into unshakable discipline, using every recovered cent as a brick in building your own independence and future legacy. Stay calm, keep your vision clear, and protect your capital with the same ferocity you'd protect your life, because your capital is your life in the form of accumulated time. The system lost a prisoner today, and the world gained a new architect of destiny, ready to build a reality that is truly yours. Mathematics is on your side now, Buck is with you, and the horizon of freedom has never been closer for those who have the courage to walk with determination. See you in the next chapter.